Thanks for clicking on to the Friday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is well so far, nearly at another weekend, and unfortunately for western portions of the UK and Ireland, low pressure is going to be the dominant player, and that will actually continue into the early portion of at least next week. But low pressure, like I say, is just to the west of the Irish coastline. It is deepening and it will wind up into a fairly deep feature for the time of the year, bearing in mind that we are now edging towards July, summer's second month. It's just incredible how quickly the time is going in. But you can see here this area of low pressure just off the Irish coast. Like I say, we do have some disturbed weather, particularly across the western portion of the island of Ireland. But as we go through the next 24-hour period, that feature will actually kind of bobble around almost over Irish airspace. What it's going to do is it's going to wind up. It's going to become a more notable feature with strengthening winds surrounding that developing area of low pressure. To the east of that, we're going to see plenty of showers breaking out across particularly western portions of Wales, down into the southwest of England, edging up towards Glastonbury. So we're going to see wet conditions here for the festival through the weekend. It looks as if it's going to be a pretty mixed affair for the folks in this part of the world. And as we go through the course of Saturday and Sunday, that area of low pressure is not really going to move around very much, but what it will do is it's going to become more organised, and we could see some fairly heavy and fairly persistent rainfall across the western side of the Irish Republic. We may see some of that rain shifting eastwards, also rain transferring up into Northern Ireland and indeed the British Isles. I think it's going to be a largely showery affair, but nonetheless, we are going to see the driest, brightest and the warmest conditions the further east and southeast you go over the UK, and I think that's going to be the theme as we go into next week, ending the month of June and beginning the month of July, with London, the southeast, East Anglia, up into Lincolnshire, possibly into Yorkshire as well, the best of the conditions overall. All the while across central and eastern portions of Europe, up into the northern portion of Europe, we're going to see some very hot conditions indeed. Looking at, I'll go back to the overview chart in a second here and talk about the things in a little bit more detail, but this was the temperatures yesterday afternoon. Very hot day across Belgium and the Netherlands, as you can see, as well as western portions of Germany. Temperatures as high as 33 Celsius in a few spots in the western portion of the country. And I noticed temperatures didn't cool off that much during the overnight period here. If we look at the temperature chart for the Benelux region in particular, you can see here overnight minimums actually 20 degrees, actually some spots 19, 20 degrees for an overnight low. So it was a pretty warm night, I think, across the western portion of Germany, the Netherlands and into Belgium as well, which I thought was quite interesting to see. But of course, it's the end of June. We are expecting to see warm days and warm nights. Current temperatures across the European continent look like this here as of recording. The time is just gone 20 past 3 in the afternoon. Notice here temperatures are well down over the Low Countries into the north of France as well. The heat is getting shifted southeast and northeast. Notice here that we're seeing some very warm temperatures. I think this is probably the warmest day of the year. I could be wrong, but the warmest day of the year, I think, across parts of southern and central Norway, Sweden, Finland, even into the northwest of Europe here. A pretty cool day for the time of the year across the Alpine region. If you notice here, down into the Mediterranean, we're talking about plenty of warm temperatures. In response to the warm temperatures, of course, the Mediterranean is very warm indeed. Which part of Iberia would you rather be in terms of beach weather? Well, you're talking about temperatures actually rather cool on the northwest coast of Spain at 15 Celsius. Get down to the Algarve, you're talking about 19, 20 degrees, fairly pleasant water temperatures, and a noteworthy difference in sea surface temperature along the Spanish coastas, with actually the Costa Dorada up towards through Valencia, Benidorm, Barcelona, right up into the northeast corner of Spain. We're seeing temperatures into the mid-20s for sea surface temperatures. So great bathing weather if you happen to be down on holiday at the moment down in this part of the world. Looking back at the overview chart here of the ECMWF, low pressure dominating the UK atmosphere, as you can see. Like I say, the best of the weather, the driest of the weather across the southeastern half of the country. Now, as we play through the weekend, you can see here that that area of low pressure doesn't really go anywhere, but what it does is it maintains a fairly dominant feature. Then it weakens according to the ECMWF by the time we reach Monday. But notice, next in line is another area of low pressure, and that will move into the UK, bringing more spells of persistent rain, followed by showers, gusty winds through Ireland, Northern Ireland, the western and northern portion of England and Wales, Scotland. Best of the weather, like I say, down across the southeastern half of the country here. Plenty of shower activity across central portions of Europe as well, if you notice here. Looking at let's have a look at the 850 millibar temperature chart here as well, because it represents quite nicely the atmosphere and the type of temperature profile you can kind of expect down at the surface. So temperatures are creeping back down into the low 20s through the weekend and into early next week across the UK. Overall, always a little bit cooler underneath the rain and in the wind. And you notice here that as we play back to the current setup, that would always help. You can see here that the area of low pressure develops. We've got some cooler, fresher air coming in from the north that wraps around that circulation, as you can see here, and it generally keeps the hot air over the Mediterranean, Central Europe, and even up into the northern portion of Europe. It keeps it at bay. It deflects the heat away from the UK and Ireland and north and eastwards here. And of course, that has been the theme throughout the month of June overall. 850 temperatures, very, very warm indeed. If you notice here in the early portion of next week, Italy could be sweltering. We could see 30s, we could even see some 40s developing in parts of Corsica, Sardinia, Italy, the Greek islands, western Turkey, and so on and so forth. Could be talking some very hot conditions, and this has been the emphasis has been in my summer forecast and June that the Mediterranean is going to be a hot time for folks down here, whether you're visiting or whether you live down here. You can see here, according to the model, there is hints at least towards the end of next week that we may try to get some of that warmer into the British Isles here. But you notice here the troughiness, low pressure, continuing to dominate the UK pattern into the early portion of July here. Looking at precipitation wise here, this is through July 5th, and you can see here that there is a fair amount of rain through Ireland, the northern half of the British Isles, down the western side of the UK, through Wales, through the southwest. Notice we've got a little corridor here stretching really from about Portsmouth and Brighton up through the Greater London area towards the Wash. There is very little in the way of rain seen by the model here. Yet get yourself onto the continent, north of Iberia, through France, Central Europe, Northern Europe. Most of the continent away from the Mediterranean basin has a reasonable amount of rainfall now through Tuesday the 5th of July here. So we're not entering any kind of major drought situation, I don't think, but that's something I will talk about later down the road with regards to the relationship between La Nina, warm ocean temperatures, a warm spring season, and early season heat waves. If you haven't already, do check out the article that I wrote a few days ago, which kind of talks about some of these aspects that I think are quite interesting and something worth doing a little bit of research in overall. But sea surface temperatures, Mediterranean basin, boiling indeed, reasonably warm up the western side of the continent within the Atlantic basin. and it's going to be interesting as we go through the rest of the summer season how the water temperatures now start to respond to the weather pattern. Do we start to see cooling of the Atlantic? If it does, what kind of impact could that have on both precipitation and temperature into the autumn season and then into the winter season? So these are all aspects, factors that I tend to look at as we go forward. But thanks for watching. I always do appreciate it. Please like, please share, and if you haven't already done so, sub to the channel and keep it right here for the next video coming up. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. Hopefully be back again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.